Hello YouTube. Some of you may know that I put out this video early in September called Pole Shift, NASA hiding magnetic field information. And in the video I say where are the measurements of the magnetic field from the satellites that are in space. So as part of my ongoing research about this topic, I'm constantly looking for information for anything that would give us more insight into the state of our magnetic field. And it ended up that I found so much information that I'm going to have to split it up into several videos. So I ran across this NOAA website that actually has information of some of the satellites that they have in space. And here's the GOES magnetometer, and here's the information here. When you go back to this my original video, in the satellites they have 3 magnetometers in 3 directions to get a 3D view, but this one is only one. It's called the HP component. This graph actually shows the HP component for 2 different satellites. So I ended up looking for a graph that had all 3 components or all 3 magnetometers, but I ended up not being able to find it myself, and I had to contact them to see where I could get that information. If you go into this link here, pull up one of these archive files. It's a pretty nice file. It shows you the 3 different components, and then they give you the readings in nanoteslas, and so they tell you the strength of the magnetic field. I wanted to compare a recent measurement compared to the past. So the magnetic field is highly influenced by space weather. So I wanted to get months where the solar cycle or the sunspot numbers were similar. So the closest I could get was the beginning of 2012 and the beginning of 1999. That was the closest that I could see. So what I did is I ended up taking parts of all like archive files and combining it into one. And the thing is, the GOES 13 is the current one, and but in 1999 you have to use the GOES 10. So what I ended up doing is I did a 3-month comparison of GOES 13 and GOES 10 for the beginning of the years in 2012 versus 1999 to get an idea of if the data is showing that the magnetic field is actually weakening. And just to let you know, the GOES satellites are in geosynchronous orbit. And so what I did is I ended up putting this red line at 120 nanoteslas to get a benchmark of what the data is showing. So in the beginning of this year, you see where the HP component comes relative to 120 nanoteslas. In January of 2012, you can see on a lot of quiet days where it came below 120 nanoteslas. But back in 1999, you can see a lot of days where it actually hit 120 nanoteslas. So you can see the difference between these 2 months under pretty similar space weather. And so NASA's data is actually showing, from what I can see, under similar space weather, pretty close sunspot numbers, that it looks like the magnetic field is weakening, and also in terms of how the magnetic field is reacting to when it's getting hit by by space weather. These fluctuations are both of KP5, and on ISWA you can see here 12-1-22, 12-1-24, both KP5s. So this is how the magnetic field fluctuated to a KP5. But when you look back in 1999, it doesn't show these huge swings, these huge fluctuations. Yet, when I go back to a KP archive for back in January of 1999, there were several days where we had KP5 space weather. So, in two ways, NASA's own data is showing that the magnetic field is weakening, and it looks like it's pretty significant. Going back to this chart, here's January of 2012 versus January 1999, and you can see the difference here. Okay, here's February, and you can see the same difference there. And then here's March, and this is probably the closest in terms of sunspot numbers. It is 68.8 versus 64.2, so it's pretty close. And so you can see the difference here and the difference here. And so what I did is I tried to get an idea, like to quantify what the difference is. So what I did is the beginning year 1999, ending year 2012, the change in years is 13 years. And so I'm going to say the approximate total intensity start was 120 in 1999. And you can see 1999 it was around 120 for those 3 months. And then I'm gonna say that it actually, on average, on quiet days, that it actually went down to 110 nanoteslas. So that's a difference of total intensity of 10. That's a total change of 8% over 13 years, which is 0.64 percentage change per year. So now I also wanted to see how this compares to other sources of information about the change in the magnetic field. So if you go to this article, National Geographic News, it says actually that the Earth's magnetic field has faded about 10% since 1845, when Gauss started keeping tabs. And this article was put out in 2004. So that calculates to 1845 to 2004, over 159 years, a 10% change. So that's 0.06 percentage change per year. And also I got this report off of the British Geological Survey site, and on here, page 11, shows the total intensity going down from about 46,250 to about 44,000. And so if you plug that in, from 1900 to 2010, for about 110 years, it basically comes out to about 0.04% per year. So this is pretty similar. And then here's the goes for 0.64. So even the NASA data is showing that the weakening has increased substantially. But I also wanted to note that these readings are on the surface while the GOES is in geosynchronous orbit. So, someone might say that, there's the information that you said NASA was hiding, and so I could be wrong. But what I'm going to show you is that throughout this video is, even though NASA's own information shows that the magnetic field is weakening, I think it's misleading because the magnetic field is weakening even more than what it shows. The first thing that makes me suspect that the Earth's magnetic field is changing much more dramatically than what the GOES satellite data is telling us is because the change in the ionization of the F1 layer. So, and I have to give credit to Suspicious Observers for this, because he's covered this for some time and he's emphasized this. But what I wanted to show you is, here's this year ending in 2011, and then here's 2012 so far. So this is this year, and this is the last solar maximum. You see that huge change? And what I wanted to share with you, if you go to the ionosphere, this is just in Wiki, it'll tell you right there that ionization depends primarily on the sun and its activity. The amount of ionization in the ionosphere varies greatly with the radiation received from the sun. You can read the rest of this if you like, but this is at 2 solar maximums. This is the difference. And what's even more striking is that there's less solar activity now. So what that says is that even though that there's less solar activity and there's more ionization, that means that our magnetic field is weakening to let in more solar radiation. And so here's today again. Here's 2000. Though it says 1999 here, it's just for December. And here's 2001. Here's 2002. And then as we come off the solar maximum and as solar radiation decreases, you expect the ionization to decrease. And so, which it does for some time. Here's 2004. And so you see it coming down. But then in 2006, in the winter months where they're not supposed to be much or any ionization, you see it starting to happen around here. And in 2006, we're still on the way down in our solar cycle. There's less solar activity. So something happened in 2006 where a magnetic field weakened to let in more solar radiation to cause more ionization of the F1 layer. Continuing, here's 2007, 2008, and you see it increasing. 2009, yeah, and at 2009 we're at the solar maximum, the solar minimum. And so you can see there's like more ionization at the minimum than there was at the last solar maximum. So less solar activity but more ionization means there's more radiation coming through, and the thing that blocks the radiation is the magnetic field. So let's continue. Here's 2010. A big jump in 2011. I guess something we're not supposed to see. And then back today. So you see this huge change in the F1 layer of the ionosphere, which is an indication of how much solar radiation is getting in. It shows this huge change. So this is the first reason I think that our magnetic field is decreasing much more dramatically than what the GOES satellite data is telling us. The second thing that makes me suspect that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening a lot faster than what the GOES satellite data is telling us is if you look at the penetration of plasma through the magnetic field. So here you see some plasma penetrating our magnetic field. That's when the red lines are above the blue lines, and you can see on spaceweather.com that there are actually auroras for those days. So you can see plasma penetrating. But you know what? This is only for Kp of 1. So you can see here November 2nd, the end of November 2nd, and toward the end of November 3rd, we had space weather of Kp of only 1. So now you're seeing Kp, solar weather of Kp1 is penetrating our shields. Now this is in comparison, if you go back to 2010, so a couple months shy of 3 years, you see some brief spikes of plasma penetration, and that is for a Kp of 4. And so this is huge. This is how much our magnetic field has weakened to allow almost somewhat similar levels of plasma in. So in less than 3 years, our magnetic field has weakened to now it's letting plasma of Kp level 1 instead of Kp level 3 and 4. So, someone might say that, well, big deal, it's only the difference between 1 and 3.5/4. But I don't know if you knew that the Kp index is a quasi-logarithmic scale. So that's huge. And this is the second reason why I think magnetic field is decreasing much faster than what we're being told. And to me, in fact, these changes in the ionosphere and plasma penetration is much more indicative or much more consistent when the North Pole was moving exponentially and the resulting decrease in the overall strength of the magnetic field and an increase in the magnetic field's complexity. Not like the linear 40 miles per year that the USGS has told us that it started moving after 2001. Now, the third reason why I think the magnetic field is decreasing faster than what we're being told is, remember in 2011 when we had this big change in the F1 layer? So this is one of the big things that I think was an indication of a big change of the magnetic field in 2011. But I don't know if you recall all of this. This happened in 2011 also. There was that huge earthquake and tsunami in Japan. The beginning of 2011 is when these mass animal deaths all started to come out. Then there was like ships around the world that started running aground. I think that's an indication of that their compasses and their charts did not reflect the changes in the magnetic field, because there was a huge change. And then also in 2011, several airports had to change the signs on their runways because the magnetic field had changed. So all that happened in 2011 to me, which showed that there was a pretty significant change in 2011. But if you look at the GOES data for 2010 versus 2011, here's 2010 in August. Here's the beginning of 2011, and the red line again is 120 nanoteslas. There's not much of a difference. And this is October of 2011. Now, in October of 2011, when there was this huge change, you might think that there was some weakening compared to the prior two plots, but I just wanted to say that that's more likely due to increased solar activity, because in October of 2011, sunspots were 88 instead of 19.6 and 19. This little difference here is due more to solar activity than weakening of the magnetic field. But the thing is, I don't think this data reflects what changes there could have been in 2011 to cause all those events to take place. So that's the third reason why I think our magnetic field is changing much faster than what we're being told. Now, the fourth reason why I still maintain that NASA is hiding magnetic field information is, in my original video I have clips from videos that actually NASA put out. In the video it says the satellites in space can measure the strength and the shape of the magnetic field. And also, I'll play this little clip for you here. This is a simulation from that video that I have called Pole Shift Anatomy, and this is how a simulation of a pole reversing. So what I'm trying to get at is, I'd like to see how the magnetic fields in line they look like, what their shape is, how complex they are, how weak they are, to give us an indication of where we are in the pole shift. And so I've run into several models on NOAA where they give magnetic field information, but they're all on the surface. And I'm gonna talk about more of that in my next video. But I could not find any model that shows the structure of the lines in space. And I ended up asking 3 doctors where I can find one of these, you know, a model of this, so it could help us out. But from 3 different doctors at 3 different organizations, and one of them which was at NASA, I couldn't find anything. And so if they have simulations and pictures that show, you know, that they can do it, but they're not sharing it with us, I have to assume that they're hiding it from us for some reason. And the reason I'm guessing that they're hiding it from us is because it's worse than what they're telling us. And the last thing I wanted to address in this video, because it's getting so long and I didn't know how long this video was going to be, was that people were asking me on my first video, why would NASA lie? And so I thought I'd address it in this video. But my answer is that, I think conventional wisdom says that they're just lying to protect the people so that, that they won't go into massive anarchy, and we might end up actually killing ourselves before the pole shift actually happens. And so, there might be some truth to that, but you'll find that NASA is part of the Illuminati. You can do a a search, or you can do some information on that. But there's a lot of information on NASA and the Illuminati, and this is more. This can go beyond why is NASA lying about the pole shift. We can go just to why does NASA lie about anything, and why does NASA lie about aliens or this and that. And so part of the reason is NASA is Illuminati, and you can search more on that. And I don't know if you knew this also, but NASA was started by a bunch of Nazis, and they brought them over in Operation Paperclip at the end of World War II. The United States, Russia, they split up a bunch of the scientists, and they brought them over. And so there were scientists in all different fields, in in rockets, in mind control, and some of the stuff is really really sick. I'm gonna go off on a tangent right now, but one of the reasons we went into to Nazi Germany was because of all um, the human rights violations that were going on. Those Nazi scientists were experimenting on twins, on children, on people, and so we went in as America to put an end to all that. But at the end of the war, we ended up just bringing them over here by the CIA to incorporate their knowledge into our country. And so, this is another conspiracy in itself. It might not even be a conspiracy because there's actual documentation on that. So there's a lot of mind control that is also Nazi influenced in the United States, in addition to NASA. And there's like Nazi buildings. The Denver airport, their airport is in the structure of a swastika. There's a Navy building in San Diego, I think, that's in the shape of a swastika. So there's Nazi influence in a lot of different places in the United States. And it's not just a bunch of skinheads. They're in high places in the United States government. So that's one of the reasons, it's one of the main reasons that they lie. And in one of my videos, I show you how NASA lies legally, because they actually answer to the President of the United States and all those military and intelligence agencies. So if NASA wanted to tell the truth, if any of those organizations or the President tells them you can't talk about it, they can't do it. And that's more in my video. But I think one of the main reasons, going back, is because they're part of the elite. And what you'll find is the elite, they rarely do anything for the good of the people. They do whatever they can to better themselves. So NASA being part of the Illuminati, what they're doing is they're protecting the elite. The elites, the Illuminati, they're protecting themselves. That's the main reason why they lie. And so they're lying to the public, saying everything's rosy, everything's okay. But the thing is, at the same time, they're building all these deep underground military bases, and you can do searches on them, and you'll find them. They're building this stuff. They're getting ready. They're getting ready for the pole shift. They're getting ready for Nibiru or what? But they're getting ready for something. But they're not willing to tell the public about it. So, and the thing is, they called it dumbs to make fun of the public who actually believe their lies. So that's, to me, the reason why they lie. And the final thing I wanted to leave you with, this is the Denver airport in the background, just as a background. But I wanted to say, after looking through all the data and the state of our planet, although the magnetic field is weakening faster than I think that they're telling us, I don't think there's any evidence to support that a complete pole shift by the end of this year. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you for watching. I didn't know it was going to be this long, and God bless.